Good morning, everyone. This is Brandon Krieger from KNSS Consulting Group. We're on episode number 4, which is amazing because we're now talking about what parents need to know about cybersecurity. We've developed into what cybersecurity is, social engineering, now what parents need to know. And I think that one of the challenges in this day and age when it comes to cybersecurity is that parents are so disconnected when it comes to the technology that their children are using. And it's scary for the challenges that they need to go through in the sense of, cyberbullying, the technology that they might be vulnerable in, the application they're installing. It's up to parents to understand the wealth of knowledge of technology, the Internet of Things, their mobile devices, what their friends are using, and the potential for them, their children, to be at risk. So today I found one of the experts that I know in this field, and I've seen him through Blab and chatting with people and consulting, was Ryan Miller. And Ryan Miller, thank you so much for coming out today.
Brandon, thank you so much. This is a very important topic, and I'm pleased that you're taking this effort to build this awareness, and it's something I'm very passionate about, so I appreciate the opportunity to join you this morning.
So let's talk a little bit about you. How long you've been doing this for, Ryan?
Oh my gosh. It's professionally, meaning as a business, it's been about just approaching 2 years at this point. But in various degrees, I've been doing it, my gosh, for close to 10 years.
Wow. Okay. And for 10 years, have you been working with students, families, high school, colleges? Kind of give us the depth of what you've been helping people with.
So yes to all of those. So I've been dealing with individual families, children that are not in conversation with their families, groups of children. So that could be within the school. It could be at a YMCA. It could be at an athletic group like a hockey team or a soccer team, talking to the coaches and kids, youth groups, scouts, very, very diverse audience. So individual, parents, and groups. Okay.
So what about cybersecurity for children? Is it really a big thing? I'm going to play a little bit of the devil's advocate with you here today because, I'm jumping in the cybersecurity world, been in marketing, starting to hear the little things, but I always hear the skepticism. Is it really that bad? Is cyberbullying really that bad? Why is parents need to know all these things? What is it really that bad out there for kids?
Yeah, and it's a tough question. And I would say it depends upon how a kid has been developed with internal resiliency. And that's a big word, but that is the ability for them to see an obstacle and figure a way to go around, over, under, or through that obstacle, or to step away from that obstacle completely. So resiliency is something that is raised in children, and it typically follows with wisdom. Now, wisdom doesn't get raised in children until they're much, much later. But depending upon how that child is brought up, whether it's words or videos or actions, can negatively affect them. And for some children, their sense of self-esteem is attributed to what's happening on the internet as opposed to what's happening inside the home. And those little activities on their own, like one text, one photo, may not be bad. But for one child, that could be devastating. So I would say in the realm of this digital connection, cyberbullying is pervasive, it's inescapable, but how a child may respond to it varies. And my experience is that every child is immersed in that behavior in one way, shape, or form. How they respond to it varies across a huge spectrum.
Now, so let's kind of, since you brought up cyberbullying, and we'll kind of point out that way, all of us have gone through at one point or another. We've been bullied, in high school, whatever. But what's the difference with cyberbullying? How bad is that? Because I know for me, when I was in, middle school, I had some kid follow me home, steal my books, whatever, rough me up a little bit. But yet you always were able to go home to a safe zone, right? I was always going to my house. Why is cyberbullying so bad now?
So, and that's a great example, because when you had the one-on-one encounter with that person that was bullying or being bullied, there was some type of conclusion that was going to happen. Sometimes it'd go behind a woodshed and one person would get beat up. but that it generally didn't travel too much further after that physical altercation. Now, if it became a consistent thing, parents had to make decisions on how to deal with the child and maybe move or go to a different school. But it was a very intimate contact. It was face-to-face. You would be followed, but it would come down to some physical altercation. Cyberbullying, you don't have a face-to-face encounter. You don't necessarily know who is saying these mean things or doing these mean things about you. And there's no way to stop that behavior absent of disconnecting from that social experience, which is devastating for a child. So it's the anonymity of who these bullies are, the magnitude in which they were bullied, and how it affects the child long term, followed by that is a permanent digital imprint for that child. That whole experience is in a digital web-based archive that is always can be found.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about this. Is that your speakers on? I can hear myself.
No, I don't have my speaker. I can.
Oh, just for some reason I was able to hear myself. So yeah, I'm going to kind of add to that. So parents, actually, hold on a second here. Yeah, I think it is on your side with the.
It's on my side. All right, I'll read that real quick.
So yeah, what I was going to add is that just so parents understand this when it comes to cyberbullying, is that you have the exposure, like you're saying, the immediate when you look at bullying in the 1980s. You go in, you had the situation, it was there, you dealt with it, you had kind of a privacy about it. Right? You might tell your family, you might tell your teacher, whatever that may be, to kind of deal with the situation. But over and above that, that was it. When it comes to cyberbullying in this era, it's almost like a campaign. And think of it that way as a reference I give people. It's like the American, when you guys go through your political campaigns, where it's a slander campaign. It's online, it's everywhere, it's on your phone, it's on your TV, it's everywhere. Well, when you come to cyberbullying in this day and age, what I'm seeing, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it's to that extent where the kids can't get away from it. Even if you kind of go and try to seclude yourself and disconnect, it's still out there. And it's still out there, and it's going viral, and it's getting leveraged by your friends at school who are tweeting it out and sharing it, Snapchatting it, and Instagramming it, and doing that. And it keeps growing where parents might not see that. They might see that instant where, oh, well, little Billy, he's having this problem, just delete your Facebook page. But they don't realize that Billy deleting his Facebook page, it's not the answer to stop the campaign of the cyberbullying. The cyberbullying is now online. Now it's getting momentum. And I think that's where the parents don't really understand that, is that the momentum of this, how it bugs the child, how it affects them, like you're saying, is because now it's going out there and it has exposure. It's not just the point where me and you have an altercation and my parents talk to your parents and then it's done. It's, well, now you put something online, and you slandered me somehow, and your friends started to tweet it out, and now their list sees it, and their friends sees it, now everyone sees it. Now, how am I supposed to get away from that? I can't.
You can't, and you used a good word. I like that example of a campaign, because it doesn't have to be a single individual that is doing this. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you were on Blab just yesterday.
No.
But there was an intervention that took place on Blab.
Okay.
And I'm not going to mention any names because I had some opinions as to how this was handled. But there was a person who was a self-identified troll who would come into this platform and be very disruptive and vulgar. And it was a minor child. It was a 14-year-old boy at home in a different country that would just come into certain rooms and be verbally offensive. And there was a person that came in to this particular room. There was two people in the room, this person and the offender, and they were having a discussion about his behavior and the trolling and the repercussions of the trolling. Now, they were going through evidence, and there was 40 people in the room. There were people in the chat room conversing back and forth. There were other trolls. I don't like that word, but that's what the internet uses.
Right, the definition, yeah.
Yeah, challenging just trying to bait this young 14-year-old into just exploding.
Right.
Now, there was a psychological difficulty with this child that requires therapeutic help. But in this platform, no one was a therapist, and it was a community experience to intervene into this one person. But here's what I want to point out about that entire experience. That one, this person was behaving in one way. He was being confronted on a social media platform, which had many people in the platform with the ability to record. And we've created an experience for this child, which was worse. I applaud the intervention efforts as they were non-therapeutic, but it was a permanent public record discussion.
Right.
That was happening in a very public domain, that somebody could take that entire episode, post it up to YouTube, and just do further damage with that additional evidence.
Right.
And it's talking about that campaign. Even in the domain of trying to do good, additional harm can happen because the kids' parents weren't aware of this happening.
Right.
So it's like we have an unknowing link as to how bad things can progress.
Right. And I think that's one thing we have to look at when it comes to parents, and why we're kind of this episode we're talking about what parents need to know is, they have to be more cyber intelligent, I'll call it, more IT intelligent on what their kids are doing online. What they're doing behind closed doors, what they're doing with their friends, what they're doing on their phone. We can do, and we'll use this as an example. For example, blab.
Yes.
I can go and get a smartphone, right, as, say a 14, 15-year-old, and I can go install blab, and I can go blab at school. If I can hit a Wi-Fi place or, a coffee shop or whatever, I can go blab. My parents might not know. Right? And I might go and troll and now let's kind of define troll. If some parents are watching this, what's the definition of a troll?
Yeah, so that's a word that I don't like to use, but the way the internet describes a troll, there's I've done lessons on what trolling is. Mm-hmm. I'm going to replace the word troll with an unidentified subject. I like the word unsub. But the behavior that is identified as trolling is disruptive, argumentative, nuisance, attention-seeking,
confrontational,
just to divert the conversation into a different direction, inflammatory, rescuing. There's all these different types of behavior that is intended to take a person in a different direction. Whatever that direction is, they're trying to take that person off a direction.
Person, or in the sense that we're talking about trolls with the internet, it could be a venue. Event.
Yes.
Right.
An event. Yes. It could take an enterprise. It could take an enterprise.
Right. Because I think what happens with trolling is to, influence that event, we'll call it, because it can be person, places, or things, right? They're trying to influence that in their direction. It could be negative. It could be something they just want attention, whatever that may be. And that's for parents to understand is the definition of a troll. So when someone comes and says, oh, yeah, I've been trolled last night, or, oh, yeah, there's this troll on my blog or my website, or your little one, your daughter, your son comes and says, oh, yeah, someone's trolling me, at least now you kind of have an understanding, oh, okay. So they're trying to influence, they're trying to start a confrontation, something along that line. So at least you know the definitions.
Sure.
So you can have these conversations with your children. I think the main thing for me today I want to get out of is how parents could be more engaged, how parents can learn more, and how parents can help protect their children. And that's why it's great to have you, Ryan, today to be able to talk about these points, these really key factors that parents really need to invest into to learn about, because it's not just anymore about the kids go to school, the kids go out and play. There's so much more now.
No, so I'll bring you, when I talk on this subject, I talk about three major categories. I talk about awareness, I talk about oversight, and then I speak about controls. In that order, that does not negate the ability of the power of a conversation and the education that encapsulates all three of those topics. But those are the three big nuggets: awareness, oversight, and controls. But
So in awareness, do you talk about risks?
Oh my gosh. So awareness is the risks, threats, dangers, and permanence of the internet.
Okay. So let's talk about that. Let's kind of go into that. What are some of the main, 10 risks that parents should know today to kind of really be mindful of?
Oh my gosh. So the risks are taking your child down a path, the internet, taking your child down a path that is contrary to what you want your child to wind up. So if you have a destination that you have planned for your child as to when they leave your home, I want to have my child equipped to know how to iron, how to balance a checking account, develop a moral and ethical foundation, and learn a work ethic, and all of those things as to what parental responsibility is. And we can't deny that we are teachers. As parents, we taught our children how to speak from the beginning. They form language from us, not from elsewhere. So we can either have that goal in mind as to how do we want to equip them when they go out, and what steps do we want to take to affect that. And then the internet is a way to take kids off of that path. So the risks are anything that is going to influence your child to take them off of the trajectory in which you desire for your child. Now, if you don't have a trajectory and you're just going to rely upon their own socialization and experience to figure out where they're going to wind up, well, that's fine.
Okay.
I don't approach this topic from a judgment standpoint, but the risks are the child is out of your control. It's in the control of an unknown space, the internet. And where they will arrive in that, they will have experiences which will be good and or bad, and the good or bad can be permanent.
Okay.
So if I desire my child to go down this path, that I want to prepare them to go to college, but their internet experience is out of my sight, I have no visibility into what my child is doing on the internet. And there are videos, texts, and images that are in the internet. And when my child files that college application, the college goes and looks at my child's social media tattoo, and there are photos and texts and images about my child that show her character on the internet, that will affect that college's ability to review her application. For adults, that is their employability. So when you come out of college and what you do in college, your employer is going to look at what your character was in college. And if you're doing upside down keg stands or smoking pot, and you want to be a police officer, check that box that you're not going to get into that job. So the risk is counter to your objectives, whatever they could be, and the permanence of that record, which will be viewable by anybody.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you as a parent. Say for my like for me example, I'm like, okay, that's great. My kids have a great path. They're going to college. They're going to university. They're going to have a great job. That's the path that they're on. Good. You've told me that. So basically, what you're telling me, so I understand right now, there's no risk for me. My kids are not at risk. They can go on Facebook. They can use YouTube. They can use their cameras.
That's the downside. So if you don't know what your children are doing on the internet,
right,
you're creating a story as to what they're doing on the internet.
Okay.
So absent of evidence of your child's behavior on the internet, there is no truthful statement that you can make about your child about what they're doing on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a fairy tale that there was a movie done by CNN. It was a documentary with Anderson Cooper. It was called Being 13, where they tracked the children and parents of several hundred 13-year-old kids. And they went through a question and answer period with them, and they did a survey. And during the CNN survey, 94% of parents said, my child is safe on the internet. The two primary bases of parental controls in which parents were offering were the amount of screen time a child has, meaning I'll put my child on a touch screen or a computer for an hour a day, or video games for an hour a day. And the other discipline was to check their history. They would go into their history report and see where the child went. So what I've been able to what they could find from that information is my child is connected for an hour a day, and this is where they went. but they never were able to determine what the experience was inside those connections. So if you go to a URL and you go to YouTube, you can see what some of the YouTube videos are, but you don't see the comments that the kids are peppering in the videos because they don't see what they're doing. So what we have is an assumption that based upon this time, based upon them going here, that my children is safe without seeing what they're doing. And if you take the world into the application world, that's not a URL. That's a sandbox environment that there is no URL that's revealed as to what they're doing in that Instagram or in Snapchat or in Periscope or whatever it is. They don't see what that experience is. So the parents have created a false logic to make themselves feel better that my kids will be safe, absent of any evidence of what the kids are doing.
Okay. So it's still kind of vague, and I'm going to kind of point this out because I'm thinking of right now, like the parents that I've dealt with, right, and they have asked questions. Parents need, in this day and age, I guess they need things that are very specific because, I'm a busy parent. I've got work. I've got, drive the kids to school, got to get them to, their practice after school, lunch, homework, doing all this. So talking in these big concepts, YouTube and all that, I'm kind of like, okay, well, it's not that big of a deal yet. So I think what I'd like to kind of cover right now is some very key specific threats, some risks that these guys have to be aware of as a parent. So, for example, geotagging, right, with their location with their kids, right, and understanding how that can be, a risk for their kids if they're tagging themselves or their friends, and it shows that where their habits are, where they're going day to day. So things like that. Like you said, posting pictures online, and I'm just going to use this picture theme right now, but posting pictures online of them and their friends doing things that they shouldn't be. I think these are all risks in one form, one platform that parents need to be aware of. And then we talk about what they put on the social sites and what they share, So I think right now, and going into groups that they don't know about, chatting with people online that they're not familiar with, right? Creating, relationships and giving private information. Oh, my parents are away this weekend. I'm going to be home alone.
So this is great. So let me take a moment to backpedal just a moment, because I am going to address this.
Good.
In that, based upon my activity in wanting to draw awareness, talk about oversight and controls, going down the risk category and talking about those things are based upon my own personal evidence and experience of the multiple people that I deal with and the response that I get from the kids in the schools and the clubs and the groups as to what is really going on out there. And I don't want this to come off that I'm sounding judgmental to parents, because I don't believe parents can know what they don't know. And all of a sudden, I'm going to be throwing some things out there. They're going to be like, holy crap. And when I start down that path, I'm not coming from judgment, honestly, because we do the best we can with what we know at a particular time. But when I start revealing some of this stuff, I don't want to leave you hanging there, because I can go on a long, long list of experiences that validate everything I'm about to say. So I don't want to leave you there. If one of these things hits your bell, reach out to me, because I have answers to everything that I'm about to talk about. So, your geolocation settings. The probably worst thing that a parent or child can do, leaving those on and posting their activities tied to a location. A simple example is an application called Foursquare, which is a very cool little app that you can log into where you're having lunch or you're going shopping or where you're buying a car. And what you've done is you're leaving little digital breadcrumbs as to what your behavior is to participate in this application, to get feedback, to get stars, to get mayor status. It's just one example of an app that people use to just tag themselves, and they put photos. Or you're at the beach on vacation and you take a photo of your feet in the sand in Cabo San Lucas. All of this information in itself is harmless. When you take the photo and tag it, it's not a problem. On the other side of that equation is how people will use that information to hurt you. So if you're taking photos of your feet in Cabo San Lucas drinking a margarita out of a coconut, you've just told the entire world that you're not at home. So there's nobody at your residence because you've just date, time, stamp, location where you are. Put that into the domain of a child. The child is taking photos when they're at this restaurant or they're at this sporting event or they're doing gymnastics on Thursday at 5 o'clock. Predators will find that as the routine and where kids are going. Now, you can use it for harm in the cyberbullying domain, or those that have other designs on children will use it as a means to find the children. Now, I'm not going to go through statistics about child abduction and sexual predators and what's happening, but sex trafficking is an issue in our country. Child abduction is an issue in our country, and some other nasty stuff that's happening, children getting scooped up, is an issue. So would we want to make it easy for those people to find our children, or do we want to try to keep our children safe? So location settings for me is an off function for a child. If you're a live streamer and your kids are live streaming on Periscope, Meerkat, Uru, Skype, whatever, they're inviting the entire perversion into their private home. Their location settings are on, and strangers are able to come through a webcam right into their home. They know where they are. They know within 15 feet as to where that person is standing, broadcasting at any time. Somebody just said, or check in at your classmate's house. Yes.
Yes, it did.
It's very true. So the location settings to me is one of those incredibly dangerous identifiers that put children at risk.
Okay.
The gang, the group beatings that are happening, that's a Twitter message away. That somebody has identified it, their geolocation settings, they tweeted out that they're at this location, and 5, 6, 7, 8 people show up and a child gets their butt kicked. So this is a new form of instant communication. Says this person's right here. They're at this place in the mall. Everybody show up. And that's
right.
That's just one. That's just one.
Just one aspect of it. So, I mean, yeah, I think what happens, and one thing I'm hearing from you is that parents really need to understand the technology of what, when they have, the children has the device, is they need to go through it first and foremost and secure it, right? Or at least have a conversation with their child and say, okay, here's what we need on, here's what we need off, this is why you need it on, this is why you need this off, and they need to go through this process of education, right, to make sure. And then they have to go through their due diligence of keep meeting with them to make sure it's being met, because as kids get older, sometimes they'll go and try to be a little bit more independent, do their own thing. And sometimes they'll install applications, as we know, and they might not know. These settings are automatically set. So
what I do is when I have these conversations with adults, it's dependent upon what the parent's relationship is with the device and at what age they've turned this device over to the child and what level of responsibility or accountability do they have. So what I say, let's start from the beginning. This is my device. I'm legally responsible for it, whether it be a smartphone, whether it be a tablet or a laptop. In the United States and in the UK and in Canada, the connection path, if I'm using the wireless or the data plan that goes through this or my laptop or my Wi-Fi, whatever that data path is, I can't enter into a contract with a smartphone device with a minor. The digital pathway connection, I can't enter into a contract with a minor either. The applications that people download cannot be contracted with a minor. So all of those, I agree in terms of services that are clicked by either the adult or the child, the legal requirement, the legal accountability starts with the parent. So when the parent takes this device with the legal responsibility and they put it in the hands of a minor child, anything that the child does on that is a legal responsibility of the parent. Any terms of service that a child downloads an app is a transfer to the parent. It's not the child agreeing to the terms of service because that's illegal. So it goes to the parent. So when we take this technology and we put it in the hands of the children, we have a legal responsibility. We have a legal responsibility as parents as to what does that mean. So when we put the technology there, now the children have access to the internet. How much access do we want to give to them, in what areas, and how do we want to ensure they're safe on that? So I start with an agreement. I give parents a boilerplate agreement and say, this is my relationship, parent, with this device. I own it. I pay for it. I maintain the account on this for you to gain access to the internet. Now we're going to talk about the terms in which I'm going to allow you to borrow it, and how do I verify how you're using it, and when you transgress my rules, here are the consequences. So that is a foreign conversation with parents to think in those terms, to memorialize the relationship between ourselves, the device, and the child. Because the child believes this is theirs, because they have no other reason to believe otherwise. So I start at that point, and then based upon the child's emotional, psychological, and their character, I talk about how they experience the joys of the internet. The risks are always going to be there, but how they're able to experience a particular app or go into a social media site is dependent upon how old they are, their responsibility, and their character. And if I don't see it, I can't police it. So just a quick example. Let's say YouTube is an example. Kids love YouTube. So I would give my child access to this device to view YouTube app videos, but I would want to see the YouTube videos with my child.
Okay.
Now that's a tremendous time commitment, but that way I have evidence as to what my child is watching.
Okay.
Now, as the child develops responsibility, I can step back away from that and give them the ability to explore YouTube with an audit process to verify what they saw on the internet. When they have developed that level of responsibility, you give them more freedom, still with that audit. Because I say there's two different parenting styles. The laissez-faire parent, which allows their child to do whatever they want to do and experience whatever they want to experience and let the consequences follow. And that's part of the child's learning. The other is the helicopter type of parent, which is completely oppressive and right on top of the child. I am suggesting that as parents, we operate inside a medium of both, and we fluctuate based upon our child. But we want to give our child the freedom to explore, but we want to prevent them from the harms, risks, and permanence of the internet. So when they transgress, we bring them right back and we protect them. Now, unfortunately, when they go too far and they don't have the wisdom yet, those decisions are permanent. So as a parent, I want to be wise as to how do I protect my child from making that permanent mistake. And somebody just said there's nothing wrong with trust but verify. Ronald Reagan said that beautifully.
No, I mean, and that's a great point, is to have the process of auditing, like in verification, and and have that contract in place. I think one thing that I like to kind of cover now is like the psychological aspect of this, because what happens is with parents, I mean, you think your kids are okay. Sometimes they're more quiet, they're submissive, but like we saw the other week when we were talking to a young teenager dealing with that, the psychological ramification of the device, the technology, how they're so tied to it that if something happens, it might be a bad situation, but they're so tied to the social experience that they don't want to let it go because I'm going to lose this. I don't want to lose that. I don't want to lose my connections. Oh my God, if I lose my friends, what happens here? But the situation's so bad, they have to let go. So talk about that psychological, connection with that, because what happens, I don't think parents really understand how tied kids are now to when it comes to the the social technology when it comes to Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat and these, tools that they're using, that it's more, for me, it's like an identity now. It's not just a tool like, oh, I'm just using my phone, okay, whatever. It's, oh my God, I can't lose this.
So, and this is a very good point, Brandon. Social sciences go through this period of developing a thesis statement, test a hypothesis, and then do double-blind studies. And then they publish their data, and then after years, something comes out that people act upon. In this domain right now, the behavior is known. It is identified as nomophobia, that the attachment to the technology is greater than that of their relationship with the pet in the home. That they will not change litter boxes, they won't take the dog out for a walk or feed the dog because they're consumed with the technology. And it is called nomophobia. But that is not a clinical thing, and it's not in the DSM-5. The science is not there strong enough to support an educational campaign to talk about the dangers of nomophobia. There are other things that are happening based upon this attachment, which are just becoming part of the scientific community. One is because we are so close to the proximity of these devices that there is studies showing that there's a retinal stretching occurring in our eyes, and there's an increased rate of farsightedness. There's another thing is because kids are constantly hunched over doing this, there's a curvature happening in the back of their neck. Now, this is all anecdotal at this point because we don't have enough time in the research to say that this is the risk of that. But if we have our blinders off, we see this happening. We see this becoming the pet. We see our children's vision deteriorating at a much younger age, and we see their posture changing. Mm-hmm. So I forget where I was going with that. But it is.
So, I mean, you're talking about the physical, and I understand that the physical actual ramification. But let's talk about the psychological, because I know what happens when it's in their development age. At this point, they're building up their self-esteem, their self-worth, and to lose that. I mean, again, that identity. And that's what I was kind of getting at, is that identity, that emotional.
So, there's a term that I use. It's called external identity locus. Sounds like a mouthful. What that means is that a child's self-worth and self-esteem is attributed to a false illusion of their social media presence, visibility, and celebrity. So that children's self-worth is being measured now based upon the selfies that they take, they post up onto Instagram, and how people like and share and or comment on that social media experience. The YouTube video that they post, how many views it gets and how many thumbs up and how many comments they get. They're doing their sense of worth is based upon how many Snapchat stories they're participating in, what their status is within the YouNow community, what they need to do to become YouNow famous. This is not a anecdotal statement again. That you can tune into Dr. Phil and to Ellen, and they bring on these children that their whole sense of identity is tied to their social media presence. And Brandon, when we were talking with that young girl, I asked her, she had 2,000 photos that she had on her phone within 10 days worth of experience. 2,000 photos in 10 days. She was in trouble. She was concerned about losing her Instagram following and her YouNow following to fix her problem. And I asked her, which is more important to you to be safe or to maintain your relationships that are not real? And she had a tough time answering that question. But she didn't want to lose those relationships she had in that social media environment, even to the point of keeping her safe. So it's flip-flopped, that children have this greater view of themselves in this virtual world of absolute strangers than they do about themselves and how they should necessarily protect and keep themselves safe. Backwards.
It is. I mean, it is completely backward. And I think one thing what I'd like to add to this is that for parents that are watching this is to understand they have to take responsibility to have conversations with their children and have separated time of, okay, you're connected with technology, you have some time with it, but then you have to step away from it and have other influences, if it's sports, if it's hobbies, if it's something else outside of technology to help to establish self-worth. Because what happens is if they're always getting their self-worth from the digital era, and there was a documentary on Netflix about this, is that the YouTuber, psychology is where you post up a video, you sit there and you wait. And if you get a like or a view on your video, I win, right? And if you get 10 views, I win even more. Well, they're showing the psychology of the kids that their self-worth of that era, like you're talking about, has grown so much is that now they become egotistical. Well, I've got 1,000 views. Look at me. I'm a celebrity now. And now it's this illusion, but then they lose it. Now they lose their life in the sense of, oh my God, I'm worthless. So having those aspects for as a parent to be able to say, okay, you can play with technology and use it as a tool and understand it as a tool, but your self-worth is going to be developed by your hobbies and other things that you do, your sports, hobbies that you do, time you spend with your family friends off your technology. And I think parents need to start to look at that now versus letting them go and play on the iPad and go play on the phone and sit there for hours on end and not really showing them how to do it properly. And this is where it comes really hard for parents, in my opinion, is to go back and now really get involved and be that parent and direct, not just on keeping them safe, keeping food on their plates, keeping clothes on their back, but now really being proactive and training them how to be great people and where to develop their self-worth.
So back in the 60s and 70s, there was a term called the latchkey kid. This is where both parents were working and the child was left at home and the babysitter was the television. Now back then, it was pre-cable TV, that there was basically 3 to 5 channels that a child, they didn't have a remote control. They had to get up to the TV and turn a knob to watch the programming on the TV. That was their entertainment. It was a one-directional communication at that point. Kid sits in front of the TV and they watch an episode of Sesame Street or Mr. Rogers or whatever, MASH. Well, today, that same kid has 1,000 channels that they may have the parental control key that they can watch whatever content they want. So the child is home alone in front of a TV with no police on the remote control, so they can watch what they want. So let's take it into the domain of the latchkey kid. TV is now this touchscreen world that we have this bi-directional communication. It's not just the programming coming to us; it is actual people engaging with us. That experience now gets pulled, it pulls the child in a different direction, and we can choose to let somebody else influence our child, or we can speak into what the relationship is between our child and that influence. If we don't see it, we can't make any statement about it. So it is the bi-directional piece is, I agree with your ability to control the amount of time, have the conversation, but honestly, the conversation absent of your participation doesn't help, because the conversation is not enough to stop the child from wanting to go and explore.
Oh, for sure. And that's what I was saying. And I agree with you. And I was saying that the parents need to be so proactive to help with those other venues, hobbies, social dates, whatever that may be, to make sure they influence them in other ways, that it's not all about the technology. And Richard just brought up a good point. Unfortunately, some of the parents don't even know how to use the devices themselves, right? So they let the children learn themselves. Now, the problem with that, and then I agree with Richard's statement, and the problem with technology is this: it grows so quickly, it's so fast in its evolution of technology and what you can do with it. Children have a network of other children, other teenagers that are playing with the technology. So they can, did you see this new thing and all that? Well, parents generally don't have that same network because, well, no, I'm busy, I'm working, I'm doing this. I don't have time to play on my phone and do that. So they need to connect, or at least take the time to be a part of a community an hour a week, be part of a podcast, get a magazine, just for them to study and keep educating, to keep up to date on what's going on. And Richard, I mean, that's an amazing point. And I see that with parents. The challenge is that they're like, I don't know. Oh, my kid's playing with this device now, and what they're doing, this new software, I see what they're doing on the news app, and I don't know what it does. Well, can you figure it out? Well, no, I don't know. So now the parent has to take that time to learn it, and it's a learning curve because they're doing it on their own.
And they don't even know where to look to learn. That's part of the problem. They don't know where to go.
Right.
This is a story I've shared with my Periscope audience. I have a very good friend who is in the IT world. He works for a big networking gear company. And his relationship between himself, his device, and his children is very secure. That he has backups, he has visibility into everything that they're doing. So with his minor son, who was 15 now, he would see every one of his child's texts. Now, we didn't talk to his child about the text, but he had visibility as to everything his child was texting at the rate of 300 to 500 texts every day. One day, the texts stopped. Well, because he saw how frequently his son was texting, and when it stopped, it sent a trigger up to him and said, whoa, what changed? So he had a conversation with his son, got the device, and found that his son had put in an encryption software on the front end to intercept the text so his father wouldn't see the text. Couldn't see it. Father has the conversation, why? Son says, because I don't want you to see the conversation between my girlfriend. Dad says, that's not cool. Dad goes, Ryan, I know you have a contract. Can you give me a copy of the contract so I can talk to this about my family, my son and my two sons and my daughter? Here's a contract. Now, normally people would think after the toothpaste is out of the tube, trying to pull it back into a contracted relationship would be hard. So he took that document, which is a template, had the conversation with his son. The son said, wow, Dad, this is really important. I agree why we're doing this. I was nervous about going down this path. Thanks for catching me. And they had a restored relationship based upon his father being involved. That's mind-blowing to me, but that is the reality of what the children really want. When I do my presentations at schools and the feedback that I get from the students, they want the freedom to explore. They want the freedom to go out and do what they want to do, but they want to do it with the security and protection that their parents would provide, but they don't want to ask their parents for that security and supervision. They want their parents to love them enough in action to keep them safe. So there's a huge desire of those that are connected to the internet that they want their parents to love them enough that they don't have to ask to be loved to be kept safe. Amazing.
See, I mean, you're seeing that on your side. I'm seeing the other side of the coin, where kids don't want their parents involved. They want them to buy the device. They want them to give it, but then it's theirs. I don't want you involved. I don't want you seeing this. I don't want you doing that.
Agree. No, I understand that is the outward activities of the child, that they want privacy, and the parents don't want to have that conversation, that friction-based conversation. I get the kids want their freedom, and they want to own that device, and they want the freedom of that device. At the same time, they want to make sure that they're safe in using it.
And that's what I'm saying. I'm seeing the other side where they don't think of safety because they have arrogance.
Let me rephrase.
So what happens is what I'm seeing, and that's what I'm saying. On my side is dad doesn't know, mom doesn't know, stay out of my business. Who do you think you are kind of conversations. Yeah. And this is, again, we're getting the point where the evolution of technology and kind of, that egotistical, look how important I am online. I don't have to respect my parents the way I used to because I'm a celebrity over here. You don't know, Dad. You don't know, Mom, who I am, right? Yep. So they have this kind of egotistical young view of the world, right? And this is why we're having this conversation what parents need to know is a young view of the world because they don't know what they're going to get into, but they have this illusion that the world's all safe It's not going to happen to me. Don't worry about it. I'm safe. I do the right thing. Who are you, Dad, to tell me that? And I'm seeing that argument, that debate going on with parents and children, because parents go, well, what am I supposed to do? I can't take away that. I'm going to fight with them. They already don't like me as is, right? Well,
there's a psychology on how to approach that transition. But to your point, you are correct in everything that you are saying about the child and that external identity locus, and they want to have that freedom, and they want the parents to just leave them alone and then go experience it. When I am in the privacy of just the kids, their admission to them participating, experiencing, or involved with the bad stuff on the internet, they all acknowledge it without exception. All of them acknowledge that they're involved in it, they see it, or they contribute to it. Some of them do all. So from their admission, they go, Mr. Miller, you're right. We are there. We see that. And some of us know how to handle it. Some of us don't, because we have 3 suicides per year at our school. So we know it's a reality over here. The other side is they don't want to go to their parents. They don't want to have the conversation with their parents. They want their parents to have the conversation with them. Now, whether they would...
But do they? And that's what I'm asking you. Do they write? And so this is where I'm saying, like, I've come on the other side. I've seen this, yes, where the parents are, and they're really trying. I've had talked to parents where, they're going to like community courses, and they're reading books, and they're really kind of diving in and doing that. And I'll give you an example. I had one parent where their kids are starting to go off the deep end. They're getting into a lot of negative things. And the debates, like, she's at the point where she's thinking that to get the police involved just to talk to her kids, because she's like at that point where I throw my hands up. I went there. I've tried to get counseling. I've tried to do that. The kids are now, it's, oh, I know best. Screw this, Mom. My friends are doing this. Who do you think you are? Kind of attitude. And I think it's hard now with parents, because what you see in our era of media, news, music videos, all that, it's teaching these kids to be hard, to be tough, to do all these great things, right, in their own era. But I think it's creating this illusion that they're safe.
So, again, I'm going to go to, this is a non-judgmental position that I want to suggest, is that it starts with the day that you put the technology in the child's hands. If you do that without any parameters around or responsibilities to that, and you move down the years and the child is experiencing this, you have relinquished control of this device. So if you want to wrestle back control, yes, that is going to be a therapeutic therapist office type of conversation, a lot of reading, and having somebody coach you through that conversation. Because are you the child's parent, or are you the child's friend? And what is your parental responsibility compared to what your friend responsibility is? And there's been a seismic shift in that there's less parents than there are friends, because there's a huge emotional needs that are being fulfilled by maintaining that friendship relationship, as opposed to the confrontational one that may be experienced by a parent. So those that have relinquished control of that technology and to get it back, that will be speed bumps. That will be uncomfortable. But the therapist is going to tell people how to have that conversation with their child. And it begins with love. Child, I love you. That's my primary goal, is to keep you and prepare you and equip you. You do not have the wisdom yet. And yes, this is going to be tough love. That I'm going to say that I learned some things that I didn't know about, and I need to be involved with my device. It's not your device, it's my device. You got to take back ownership of what you have, and then start the conversation from love. I had to do this with my own daughter. I gave her too much freedom. It came at a cost. I had to bring it back in and say, listen, sweetie, this was my screw up, not yours. That I can't trust you to know these things. This is where I fell down. I need to have a new conversation with you, and we got to put parameters in place. And as you go down this path, I'm going to keep my eyes on you. I will let you experience it, but when it goes bad, I'm going to pull it back. That's the expectation. My goal is to keep you safe, that you may not know how bad it's going to be. But it's not easy. It's the number one thing that's happening in the therapist office right now with parents and children. Number one topic, by far. And the therapists are not prepared because they don't know the breadth, risks, depth of the dangers of the internet. That's not their trade.
And it's important and this is where it's kind of interesting to talk about this. It's something that is, like you said, it's more common now, needs to be discussed, and parents need to have these tools themselves to be able to deal with. Now we're coming up, we got about 4 minutes left to go. What are 5 things that parents can do starting today to help learn and protect their children?
Well, first I would say acknowledge you've done the best you could with what you know where you are today. So right now you've done the best you could. And let me say kudos to you for what you've done thus far. Now, as we go down this area of awareness, I would say that there are certain things that are immediate type of actions that people should take. And that is to, 1, figure out what your children are doing on the internet today, what applications they're using, are they using live streaming? Do some not invasive discovery, but conversational discovery to find out what they're doing, where they're going, and what their social media presence looks like, what their social media behavior looks like. The other comes down into those kind of things, which are the security, the location settings, disabling webcams, taking certain malware, making sure malware is not getting on there, trying to protect your child's identity, protect the family's identity. Then the other is a security protocol for your home's network connections. There's this topic is so enmesh-brained, and there's not really a top 5. It's kind of like a journey. When you've got this awareness that, oh my gosh, it's bigger, dangerous, more difficult than I thought, there's no one switch you can flip to make it be better. So it's like an ideological shift that you need to look at multiple aspects. And then it all's based upon what is your worldview? Do I want my child to experience this and it's okay? Or where do I want to put the brakes on them and not experience that? So that's kind of why I built my site. I appreciate you putting a link in there, is to help parents where they are at a particular time to fix certain things. And then if they need to, as their child is growing up and they're experiencing more, what they need to look at that particular time, because there's not one switch. I mean, if you've got an 8-year-old, you need to know about what's going on in Webkins and Club Penguin and Habbo. You need to know that. And what do you do with that child, which is different than an 11-year-old, different than a 13-year-old, different than a 17-year-old. So it's very, very amorphous kind of experience.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's 5. That was 5 great points. Now, I'm going to add my own 5 points to this just to kind of help parents out. First, I agree with Ryan. First one, kind of do a self-evaluation. Understand where you are when it comes to your knowledge and expertise, when it comes to all the technology and the devices. Understand where your kids are. Have the conversation, right, and see what they're doing, right? Have a meeting with other parents in your community, other parents that, are your school. Create a weekly meeting where you guys sit there and you discuss what's going on with the technologies, devices, what are the kids using, what's the conversation they're having. Do it in a community type setting, because as a group in a community, you could work together and help support each other. And what happens is, even in those meetings, those weekly meetings, one of the parents could say, hey, I learned about this app. Here's how it works. Let me show you all, you guys. And you guys can learn off each other, which then helps support the growth and the knowledge that you guys have as parents, that you're not alone. You're not by yourself doing this. It's a community doing it. And, parents, you guys could have almost like a book club. You could have like a study club when you have different resources, like Joan is learning from this cybersecurity person. This other person's learning from, this iPhone person, how to use these iPhone apps. And you guys are always coming together week to week and discussing this, how, things that you guys are learning as parents, so you can help to educate, help protect, and help to, secure your devices, right? Next is make sure that you guys are having ongoing conversation with your children to understand what they're going through. And when you see them out of habit, what they're norming their routines and what they're doing, get in there, start having a conversation. Don't think you're invading you're intruding in their privacy in the sense of, they need time by themselves. Go in and find out what's going on, because a lot of times what happens is kids will go in to be introverts when something happens because they don't want to tell you. They feel scared. They feel intimidated. Well, those are the times you need to go, okay, I know something's up. What's going on? I'm here. And then keep judgment out. It might be something that you might not feel comfortable at. Let them express themselves. Let the children be there. And then go back to the community that you're creating and say, hey, my daughter, my son's dealing with this. Oh, my God, I'm just upset. I'm pissed off. What do I do with that? And then come back in a more calm manner, more supportive manner to your child and be able to support them. Because what happens is sometimes as parents, we want to protect our children. Sometimes we get our own emotions involved and they get affected. So if we get mad, the child might think that we're getting mad at them. And it's not the case. We're mad at the situation. So what happens is they have to know that we have their back. We're there to support them. We're here to protect them. And we're here to listen. If they feel that we're an open forum that they're going to, they can talk to, at least we're going to know what's going on. And then we're going to be able to help them protect themselves. So those are some key points I think, as parents, we need to really think about and implement in parenting this day and age of cybersecurity, the Internet of Things.
I'm going to share something from my visibility that I'm connecting dots. And I fully support your suggestions about that collaborative group kind of conversation, that the small club, book club type of thing. That when I talk about this topic, it's why I need to pull back from anything that be perceived as judgment. Is that parents, when they hear this kind of message, attach to themselves a fear of failure. Now, I'm not saying that. That's not what I'm saying at all. But internally, they have an internal critic that says, I am not doing all the things that I should be doing. And that hobbles them from trying to get into that community environment because they do not want to be public with what they may not have been done. So I'm trying to help parents understand that inner critic is not coming from me, that you need to evict the inner critic and say that you've done the best you could with what you have right now. And whether you go into a group environment or you go into a therapeutic one or you go to a private anonymous resource to get these things addressed for you, it shouldn't be a way to stop you from having that conversation. I give people the ability that they can gain as much information they want based upon anonymity, or I make myself available for a consultation to deal with the therapeutic type of how do you transition that discussion with your parent, with your children, or are there additional needs that you need the therapeutic support? It's getting out of the gate, which is the hardest part, and whether it be going to a group or having a conversation or even having a look into your child's technology, that's an inner critic piece that parents have. It's my opinion that they have this piece in them that prevents them from having that discussion because of the fear of the friction. And it doesn't have to be friction. Awesome. And honestly, the children actually, the other side of the equation, when you confront your child and hold them responsible and you are supervising in this domain, the child flourishes. It's amazing. It's counterintuitive, but it is absolutely what happens is the child flourishes.
Awesome. Well, we're finishing up right now, Ryan. Ryan Miller, thank you so much for just being here, letting us talk about what parents need to know, the deep conversation, as well as everything we've covered, the tips that you provided. If you guys are watching this, you're parents, and you have questions, you're wondering about, what do I do as a parent when it comes to cybersecurity or the technology, visit www.parentdome, that's DOME.com. Check out Ryan's information. He's one of the resources and experts that I follow to make sure that when it comes to anything dealing with parents, you go out there. He also does a Periscope, periscope.tv/, parent_dome. Go there as well. You can watch his periscopes and just see the live conversations and get part of the conversation as well as he's here a part of Blab. So a lot of great information. You can always pull from him. You can follow him on Twitter as well. So he's connected. So he's out there.
Yeah, man.
Thank you so much, Ryan.
Brandon, thank you so much. That was very helpful, and I appreciate the opportunity.
So, guys, I'd like to thank you for watching today's episode. I know we ran just a couple minutes over, but I wanted to give you guys a lot of value, a lot of information, as well as help parents as much as I can, because I know when it comes to the Internet of Things, cybersecurity, it's overwhelming. It's daunting to understand everything that's out there when it's your mobile devices, your iPads, your Samsung devices, your mobile laptops, connections, all this. What do you do with all this technology? How do you secure yourself? But now when you're talking about parents, we are our kids' protectors, so we have to learn and know what to do. So this is why I found this episode to be a very important conversation. And again, if anyone has these types of questions, make sure you contact Ryan or come out to the next Blab that we have and ask questions, because we're always here to help. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Good job.